how much more can these people and these factions take? You know, the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm. I'm so excited about this latest chapter because it just brings in so much of the mythology of the world and the richness of its characters. And, you know, apart from just clever story hooks, it begins to truly show how much soul is possible, you know, how much emotional connectivity you can have to the, you know, these events and these characters. For the genre and for just the World of Warcraft in particular, I think there's a little bit something for everybody, whether you're, you know, re-leveling again 1 through 60, which is surprisingly emotional, given these lands that you've known and ventured through all this time, to see them reborn in new ways. But with all of these things combined, it just feels just very rich and very satisfying, you know, in terms of the fiction finally coming full circle and all the mythology of the world completing this circuit.
World of Warcraft's a 5-year-old game. It's got a huge history. And I was part of that history. I was a player. So to come in on Cataclysm, where we're going to redo some of the old world, that's really cool for me as a player. I get all geeked up about it because I get to come in and I remember the quests I didn't like, and I remember the things that bothered me as a player. I get to fix them. I can actually go back to the old world and really fix this stuff up.
It's all about upheaval. And it's not just the physical upheaval, but the political upheaval that's occurred.
So Thrall, right? He's very central to events in Cataclysm. And in a lot of ways, he's kind of maybe like the most popular Warcraft character singularly. He's this interesting mix of kind of old school orc and you know, but raised by humans and kind of found a new way to lead the Horde, lead his people. He's very principled, he's very Superman-like, right? I think most people, when they consider Thrall, well, he's incorruptible, he always does the right thing, he's mega powerful. And one of the really interesting themes of Cataclysm that we've been exploring is just the idea that things fall apart, right? At a global level, at an environmental level, at a societal level, at a spiritual level. And really looking at Thrall, you know, this pillar of all things Warcraft, right? The one incorruptible dude out there. What if Thrall's sense of identity was in jeopardy as well? You know, that's a pretty radical, you know, thing for that character. And it just felt immediately true. Like, yeah, you know, we started looking at Thrall. You know, he brought his people out of slavery. You know, was raised as a gladiator, but really became this very wise, you know, shamanic, messianic character, right? United 2 worlds and, you know, created a new homeland for his people. And the idea that all of his experience that looks so noble and is so, you know, super heroic, what if at base he was just this lonely kid whose parents were murdered? You know, there's a little more Bruce Wayne going on there than anyone would suspect. And all of this duty and obligation and all of the things he has done for his people to distinguish himself. What if it's actually more of like a warped codependency? Actually doesn't know who he is outside of this duty, outside of this mission that he has to always be the answer, always solve the problem. And he's done very well, but what if inside is actually pretty hollow?
As the initial ripples start to hit the world and we can start feeling Deathwing writhing beneath us, you know, in the plane of Deep Home and the plane of Earth, Thrall senses this and senses something is wrong, something is happening on the tail end of this Northrend expansion. This initiates the changing of the guard. As Garrosh is coming off the victory and we're starting to feel more tremors and bad things happen, Thrall puts him in charge in the interim, an interim war chief of sorts. Garrosh is the son of Grom Hellscream, a legendary orc, probably the most important orc, or one of the most important orcs to exist. An interesting and often overlooked facet of Garrosh's character is he's a brown orc. Players actually tend to take this for granted. They just look at it like, yeah, he's a brown orc. What does that even mean? Well, it actually has a great meaning to orcs. Brown is the original color of orcs. Orcs were brown from birth on Draenor. What corrupted them was the blood curse. When Garrosh's father Grom drank from Manoroth's blood, and essentially the rest of the orcs did, they underwent a physical transformation, this curse that changed their skin from brown to green and affected their eyes and other things as well. So when an orc that has come through the dark portal and has endured the blood curse and other things, terrible things, sees another brown orc, they have a very, very visceral reaction, in a good way, I think. I think that you see that, you almost see yourself back when things were good, when things were pure, when there wasn't insanity happening to your homeworld and it being torn apart. And that's something that hits them instantly. So they see this brown orc that represents pretty much the ultimate. So this is what Thrall had to contend with in terms of who he puts to power.
The earth is starting to buckle, the cataclysm is beginning. Thrall decides to head back to, the old country in Outland, to go to Nagron, Throne of the Elements, and talk to elementals who have lived through the destruction of their world. Hey guys, are there things I can look for, to tell me if my world's gonna blow up? And while he goes back to Nagron, he meets a character named Agra, who is a shaman, lieutenant of Thrall's grandma, Gaia. Thrall and Agra will kind of become an item. And Agra, as a very accomplished shaman herself, will kind of challenge Thrall. Like you wear the name of slave. Like, who do you think you are? People think you're this rock star war chief, but like when I look at you, I feel the depth of the insecurity, the depth of the hollowness. The rhythms and systemic thinking that Thrall's become all about. And she challenges him at that most innate level. They're like, did you really know who you are? Do you really believe, that the self, image you have is the truest you? And throughout the events of Cataclysm, ultimately Agra and Thrall will come back to Azeroth, and he will rally the Earthen Ring, and he will leave the Horde to literally go out and try and knit the world back together. But over the course of his adventures, he will see who he truly is, and his own spiritual realization of the truth of him, of the power of his life, of his connectivity with all these characters and people that he loves and the people that he loves. His own healing will ultimately empower him to play a big part in saving the world and healing the world, literally. Deathwing is one of the 5 dragon aspects of the Warcraft universe. The idea is that dragons in Warcraft are split up into 5 distinct flights, and they were empowered long ago to guard certain aspects of the world. The blue dragons guard magic, black dragons guard the earth, red dragons are, protectors of life, and so on. So Deathwing and the black dragon flight originally were meant to protect the earth. Originally, Deathwing was named Neltharion. It was very jovial and did a good job protecting the world. As in deeper Warcraft lore, there are very dark, villainous creatures called the Old Gods that were long ago chained beneath the world. And I think their kind of crazy, maddening whispers over the millennia kind of seeped up from their subterranean prisons and drove Neltharion a little crazy, to the point where long ago he lost his mind, ceased to be Neltharion, and really became Deathwing. A specific conflict about 10,000 years in the past of present-day Warcraft, called the War of the Ancients, where the big demon army was invading the world. And it was at that time where the 5 dragonflights united were meant to drive this enemy from the shores of the world and save the world, fulfill their function of protecting the mortal races. And in the midst of all that, as Deathwing's madness was kind of growing in his ears, he created an artifact called the Dragon Soul, right? That he tricked his brethren into believing, well, if we combine our power as we're meant to, this will be the great weapon, to save the world. And in truth, once he had all their powers put into this terrible artifact, he claimed it for his own and essentially betrayed them in the worst moment at the 11th hour, essentially turned on the other dragonflights, decimated the blue flight, forever cursed the black flight, and just pretty much broke the family apart. And as his madness overcame him, his innate kind of powers over the forces of earth and fire just kind of erupted in his body. His gargantuan body literally split apart with like fire and magma in this horrific eruption, almost as if he's like a volcano in dragon form. And that day he became Deathwing, just this raging, fiery engine of destruction. And one of the interesting things about Deathwing's visual kit is that while he's this gargantuan dragon, and the fact that he's kind of literally always falling apart because his rage just cannot be contained by his physical shell, they actually had to hammer into these adamantine plates all along his spine just to literally staple his body together. his rage was so uncontrollable. So it creates a very cool visual look for him as a villain in the series. And the latest incarnation of Deathwing, which is probably the most dangerous ever, he's actually stapled together with Elementium, which is kind of a new steel we've conjured for the game that kind of channels the powers of the elements through it. It's kind of a conduit for, whatever elemental power is aimed at it. So certainly his is fire and stone, so he's kind of more dangerous than ever before. So why now, right? Why is Deathwing emerging, erupting into the world and causing this cataclysmic event? The answer to that is that at this time in the history of Azeroth, a long chain of events is finally reaching its fulfillment. There is this very ancient prophecy that is not often, spoken of, that speaks of kind of this hour of twilight, the final days of the world. If the old gods that were chained long ago had their way, set in motion, this chain of events that would enact, their final vision to remake the world in their image, this hour of twilight. And what we've seen happening to some great degree over the past number of Warcraft products, probably starting with the Gates of Ankh-Kirash patch, where we saw the old god Cthulhu, kind of rising beneath the land of Silithus. So clearly there's a chain of events in motion where the old gods are rising, their ancient machinations are finally paying off, and Deathwing ultimately is their greatest hammer. He is the great weapon that they've been waiting to use all these years. While he's had his own machinations, over the course of history, trying to make his own dragonflights and, kind of build his own kingdoms, the truth is, he was corrupted by the old gods from the start, and in this final hour, right, where they will, attempt to assure their, ascendancy, he is pretty much the greatest weapon, for them to unleash. So that's why now their final end game is in play, and he is pretty much the great key to it all.